Have you ever had the feeling that someone is watching you? That uncomfortable sensation of invisible eyes following your every move? For Daniel Matthews, this feeling became real in the most disturbing way possible. And it all started with an old painting in a forgotten thrift shop. This is a story about obsession, secrets from the past, and a truth that no one was prepared to discover. It was a rainy Saturday in August when Daniel, a 32-year-old architect, decided to explore the thrift shops in the historic downtown area. He was looking for something unique to decorate his new apartment. The third shop on the list was the oldest on the street, Relics of Time, a dusty place that smelled of old books and mothballs. The owner, a thin man in his 60s with thick-lensed glasses, had been watching Daniel with strange attention since he walked in. Daniel was browsing through old furniture and forgotten objects when something caught his eye. At the back of the store, leaning against the wall between two shelves, was a medium-sized painting with a hand-carved dark wood frame. When Daniel approached and saw the painting, his blood ran cold. The man in the painting was him. Not just similar, it was identical. The same angular face, the same thick eyebrows, even the small scar above the upper lip that Daniel had since childhood. The only difference was the clothing. The man in the painting wore an old suit, probably from the 1950s.
Daniel stood paralyzed for a few seconds, unable to take his eyes off the painting.
Excuse me, how much for this painting?
The shop owner approached slowly. For the first time, Daniel noticed the man had sunken eyes and a permanent expression of sadness on his face.
That one. My mother painted it. She was very talented.
It's incredible. But who's the man in the painting? He looks a lot like me.
The owner studied Daniel's face for a long moment, as if mentally comparing something.
I don't know. My mother never told me. But if you identify with him, maybe it's meant to be yours.
How much?
$200. But before you take it, could you do me a favor? Leave your name and phone number, just for my records.
Daniel thought it was strange, but wrote down his information in an old notebook the owner offered. He paid, took the painting wrapped in brown paper, and left the thrift shop with a strange feeling in his stomach. He didn't notice that the shop owner stood at the door, watching him leave with tears in his eyes. That night, Daniel hung the painting on his living room wall. The more he looked at it, the more uneasy he became. The resemblance was too disturbing to be a coincidence. He took a photo of the painting and posted it on social media. Found this old painting at a thrift shop? Does anyone know its history? Comments started coming in.
Dude, that's you.
How bizarre! It looks exactly like you!
This is creepy. Do you have an identical ancestor?
Daniel decided to investigate. First stop, talk to his father.
A painting? What are you talking about, Daniel?
Dad, is there any relative of ours that was never mentioned? Like someone from Grandpa's or great-grandpa's time?
What a strange question. Look, your great-grandfather's family was very private. He had a younger brother who disappeared when he was young, but no one ever knew what happened to him. Why?
Daniel went back to examining the painting. This time, he noticed something he had missed, a discreet signature in the lower right corner. H. Williams, 1987. 1987? That didn't make sense. If the man in the painting wore 1950s clothes, why was the painting from 1987? Daniel searched on Google. H. Williams, painter, artist. Nothing relevant. Then he searched genealogy websites, public records, even digitized old obituaries. After 3 hours of searching, he found it. Helen Williams,
Deceased in 2019. Amateur artist, never exhibited professionally. Left one son, Thomas Williams. Daniel's heart raced. Thomas Williams, the thrift shop owner.
The next day, Daniel returned to the thrift shop. He needed answers. The store was strangely empty. Thomas was sitting behind the counter, flipping through an old photo album.
Hello. I came back. I bought a painting here yesterday.
Thomas slowly looked up, as if he had been expecting this visit.
I knew you'd come back. I recognized you the moment you walked into the store.
What do you mean? We've never met before.
No, but I've spent my entire life looking at your face. My mother painted over 50 paintings of you. 50 different portraits, over 30 years.
Daniel felt a chill.
50? But I don't understand. Who was your mother? How did she know me?
Thomas opened the photo album and turned it toward Daniel. Page after page showed paintings, all of the same man, the same face, Daniel's face, at different ages, different poses, different expressions. It was obsessive, disturbing.
She never told me who you were. When I was a child, I used to ask, "Mom, who is this man you keep painting?" She would just smile sadly and say, "Someone very special."
This doesn't make sense. These paintings are from the 80s and 90s, right? I was born in 1992. How could she paint my face before I existed?
Thomas slowly closed the album.
That's the question that tormented me my whole life. For years, I thought my mother had some kind of mental problem, an obsession with a face that only existed in her imagination. But when you walked in here yesterday, I saw it. You're real. You exist.
Your great-grandfather. I found out my great-grandfather had a brother who disappeared young. Maybe it's him. Maybe your mother knew him and...
No, I investigated that. I researched my mother's entire history. She was born in 1954. If your great-grandfather or great-uncle disappeared in the 40s or 50s, the timeline doesn't work. She was too young.
A heavy silence filled the store. Thomas hesitated, then got up and went to a cabinet at the back of the store. He returned carrying an old shoebox.
After she died, I found this. They're diaries. I never showed them to anyone because, well, you'll understand.
He handed the box to Daniel. Inside were several notebooks with flowery covers worn by time.
Read the entry from March 15th, 1987, page 47 of the Glue Notebook.
Daniel opened the notebook with trembling hands and found the page. The handwriting was feminine, delicate, but shaky in some parts.
I saw him again today, at the supermarket, buying oranges. He didn't see me. He never does. I wore the red coat he once said he liked, but it didn't help. I followed him to the parking lot and watched from a distance as he put the groceries in his car. For a moment, when he looked in my direction, I thought he had seen me. My heart almost stopped. But no, he looked right through me, like he always does, as if I were invisible. I came home and painted him again. It's the only way to have him close to me.
Daniel felt nauseous.
She was stalking me?
Keep reading. It gets worse.
Daniel turned the pages. Entry after entry described one-sided encounters. Helen following him to work, waiting for hours outside restaurants, learning his routine, collecting information. But then, in an entry from 1995...
Today was a terrible day. I saw him with that woman again. She was pregnant, very pregnant. I felt my world crumble. He's going to have a child, a family, and I'll never be part of it. I'll never be anything but a shadow.
Daniel closed the notebook, his hands shaking.
Wait, 1995? My mother was pregnant with me in 1995.
I know. I did the math.
So she wasn't stalking an ancestor of mine. She was stalking my father.
The silence in the store was deafening.
There's one last entry from 2018, a year before she died. She was already sick, somewhat delirious, but she wrote something that finally explains everything.
He picked up a different, newer notebook and read aloud.
Thomas will ask again about the paintings when I'm gone. I already know he will. So I'm writing this. The man I painted my whole life is named Michael Matthews. I met him in 1982 when I worked as a secretary at the company where he was an engineer. I fell in love on the first day. But he never noticed me, never really saw me. I married my Thomas, my son's father, just to appear normal, but my heart always belonged to Michael. When he got married and had a child, I thought it was the end. But then I saw his son, a 3-year-old boy at the park, and he had the same face I loved, as if fate was giving me a second chance. I started painting the boy, too. I watched from afar. I never approached. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. I'm sorry, my son. Sorry for never being the mother you deserved.
Daniel felt his legs weaken. He sat heavily in an old chair.
She painted my father? And then started painting me when I was a child?
I had to know. That's why I put the painting up for sale. That's why I asked for your contact. I knew that if you were the boy in the paintings, you'd be an adult now, the same age your father was when she met him. I needed to see if you were real, if all of that wasn't just madness.
Did your mother ever talk to my father?
I don't think so. From the entries, she always watched him from afar, a silent adoration that turned into obsession. And then, you.
Daniel remained silent for a long moment, processing everything.
My father, did he know?
I don't know, but if he never mentioned a strange coworker from the 80s, I imagine not.
This is a lot to process. I spent my whole life being watched without knowing, being painted by someone I never met.
I know, and I'm sorry for putting you in this situation, but I needed answers as much as you did. I needed to know if my mother had lived an entire life obsessed with ghosts or with real people.
Daniel looked at Thomas, really looked. He saw a tired, middle-aged man carrying the weight of secrets from a mother he barely knew. Someone who was also a victim of this strange story.
What are you going to do with the other paintings?
I don't know. Part of me wants to burn everything, but they're the only things I have of her, even if they are disturbing.
And me? What do I do with this?
You decide. You can tell your father. You can sue her estate. You can demand all the paintings. Or you can do what I did, except that some people carry impossible loves that become obsessions, that my mother was a sick and lonely woman who found comfort in a fantasy, and that now it's over.
3 months later, Daniel was in his apartment, looking at the painting on the wall. He had decided not to tell his father. What would be the point of bringing up a story about a woman he probably didn't even remember? A stalker who never actually harmed anyone but herself. Daniel had gone back to the thrift shop one more time, a few weeks ago. Thomas was closing the store, said he was moving to another city, starting over. Before leaving, he gave Daniel a bag. Inside were 3 more paintings, paintings of Daniel at different ages, at 5 years old, at 10, at 15. "So you know it was real," Thomas had said, "and so you can make peace with it your own way." Now, looking at the original painting on the wall, Daniel no longer felt fear or anger. He felt something strange, almost like pity. Helen Williams had spent decades loving someone from afar. She had transferred that impossible love to that person's son, and she had died without ever being reciprocated, without ever being seen. Daniel picked up the phone and dialed.
Dad? Hi. I know it's late, but do you remember a Helen Williams? She worked with you in the 80s.
Helen? I think so. She was a shy girl in the secretarial pool, wasn't she? Barely talked to anyone. Why?
No reason. Just curious.
He hung up and looked at the painting one more time.
I hope you found peace, Ellen.
And for the first time since buying that painting, Daniel was able to sleep without nightmares. What Daniel never discovered, and what Thomas never mentioned, was the last painting Helen made before she died. It was stored in the thrift shop basement, covered by an old sheet. It was a painting of Daniel, not as a child, not as the adult he was now, but as a 60-year-old man, with gray hair and wrinkles around his eyes. On the back of the painting, in shaky handwriting, it read,
"For the future. For when he grows old, like his father grew old. For when he finally understands that some loves transcend time and reason. See you in your dreams, Daniel."
Thomas burned that painting the day he closed the thrift shop. Some obsessions, he decided, should die with those who created them.
And you? If you found a painting of yourself made by someone you never met, what would you do? Leave your opinion in the comments. And if this story gave you chills, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Because reality, sometimes, is scarier than any fiction.